The return to Willow Creek. The sleek, obsidian sedan glided down Elm Street, a stark contrast to the sun-drenched, slightly faded houses of Willow Creek. It pulled to a silent stop in front of the old Miller place, a two-story Victorian with peeling white paint and an overgrown rose bush that clawed at the porch like a desperate hand. A collective hush seemed to fall over Mrs. Gable's porch, where she and Martha Henderson had been dissecting the week's news with clinical precision. The driver, a burly man in a crisp suit, emerged first, opening the rear passenger door with a practiced hand. Out stepped a woman who moved with an effortless grace that spoke of expensive fabrics and a life far removed from Willow Creek. Lena. Her mocha skin glowed, her dark hair pulled back in a chic, no-nonsense bun that highlighted sharp cheekbones and eyes that held both warmth and an unreadable depth. She wore a tailored linen suit the color of a summer sky, and the scent of jasmine and something subtly metallic seemed to precede her. Following her, with a hesitant step, was a girl who looked no older than 15. Her straight, dark hair fell past her shoulders, framing a delicate, heart-shaped face. Her eyes, a luminous brown, flickered nervously around the quiet street before settling on Lena's reassuring smile. Hannah clutched a worn sketchbook to her chest, its cover adorned with a charcoal drawing of a snarling dragon. She wore simple jeans and a soft, oversized t-shirt, a stark contrast to Lena's polished elegance. Lena's gaze swept over the familiar landscape, a faint, almost imperceptible tightening around her lips. Then, she turned to the two women now openly gawking from Mrs. Gable's porch. A polite, yet firm, smile touched her mouth. "Good afternoon, ladies. It's been a while, hasn't it?" Mrs. Gable, a woman whose memory for local events was legendary, adjusted her spectacles. "Lena Miller? Good heavens, child, is that truly you? We thought you'd vanished off the face of the earth." Her voice was a mixture of genuine surprise and thinly veiled accusation. Lena's smile remained, a testament to years of careful composure. "Life took me in some unexpected directions. But I'm back now, and I've brought someone very special with me." She placed a gentle hand on Hannah's shoulder, who instinctively leaned into the touch, her gaze still skittish. "This is my daughter, Hannah. I adopted her several years ago." Martha Henderson, ever the direct one, squinted. "Adopted? From where?" Lena's eyes met Martha's, a flicker of something unyielding in their depths. "From overseas. She's a wonderful girl." Her voice, though calm, held an edge that discouraged further inquiry. "We'll be settling back into the old house. It needs a little work, but it'll do." Hannah, sensing the unspoken tension, dug her fingers into the cover of her sketchbook. She wished the dragon would roar, would breathe fire and turn these nosy women into ash. Lena, however, seemed unfazed. She projected an aura of unshakable confidence, a shield against the probing stares. "Well, I never," Mrs. Gable mumbled, exchanging a significant look with Martha. The unspoken questions hung in the humid air, thick and heavy. 17 years. Adopted daughter. Overseas. The pieces didn't quite fit the Lena Miller they remembered. The girl who'd left with nothing but a bus ticket and a dream. Lena turned her back on the porch, a silent dismissal, and guided Hannah towards the front door of the neglected house. As the heavy front door creaked open, revealing dusty shadows within, Lena squeezed Hannah's hand. "It's home, sweetheart," she murmured, a promise in her voice, a new beginning etched in the fading light of Willow Creek, whispers and worries. The oppressive quiet of Oakhaven settled on Hannah like a thick blanket, muffling the vibrant hum she remembered from the city. She traced the jagged peaks of a dragon's spine onto her sketchbook, the charcoal dust smudging her fingertips. "I miss the sirens," she murmured, not looking up from her drawing. "And the pizza place that smelled like garlic and oregano all the time." Lena, perched on the edge of the worn armchair, lowered her book. "The city has its charms, sweet pea, but Oakhaven has tranquility." She offered a soft smile, but her eyes held a familiar sadness, a shadow Hannah had learned to recognize. Hannah snorted, a small, unladylike sound. "It has boredom," and Mrs. Gable. Mrs. Gable was Oakhaven's self-appointed town crier, her voice a perpetual rustle of gossip and thinly veiled judgment. Hannah had overheard snippets in the general store. Such a striking child, but where did she come from, really? And Lena's been gone a long time. Who knows what she got up to? The insinuations clung to the air like dust motes in the afternoon sun, visible only when the light hit them just right. Hannah knew she didn't look like anyone else in Oakhaven. Her almond eyes and straight black hair, a stark contrast to the town's fair-haired inhabitants. She tried to ask Lena about it once, but Lena had simply hugged her tight and changed the subject. Later that afternoon, while Lena tended to her nascent herb garden, Hannah sat on the porch swing, sketching the sprawling oak in the front yard. A polished black sedan, incongruous in the sleepy street, slowed to a crawl. A man in a dark suit, his face obscured by the brim of a fedora, stared intently at their house. His gaze lingered on Lena, then shifted to Hannah. A cold, appraising look. He didn't wave, didn't smile. He simply observed, an unblinking presence. The car then idled past, disappearing around the bend. Lena, her trowel frozen mid-air, watched the sedan until it was long out of sight. A tremor ran through her, subtle but unmistakable. "Did you see that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Hannah nodded, her pencil still. "He was looking at us." Lena straightened, brushing soil from her hands. Her posture stiffened, a familiar shield falling into place. "Probably just lost," she said. But her eyes scanned the quiet street with an intensity Hannah hadn't seen in weeks. The tranquility of Oakhaven suddenly felt less like a blanket and more like a shroud. The whispers, both spoken and unspoken, were growing louder. Secrets and self-defense. The late afternoon sun dappled through the oak leaves, painting shifting patterns on the patchy grass of the backyard. Lena stood with her feet shoulder-width apart, demonstrating a firm block. "Remember, Hannah, it's not about strength, it's about leverage. Use their momentum against them." Her voice, usually soft, had an edge of precision now. Hannah mirrored her stance, a little clumsily, her brow furrowed in concentration. She felt awkward, like a marionette whose strings were constantly tangling. "Again," Lena instructed, her hand a blur as she feigned a strike, which Hannah parried with an elbow, just as Lena had shown her. The impact was light, but enough to make Hannah's arm tingle. "Good. See? You're faster than you think." Hannah wasn't sure why these lessons had started. Lena had always been protective, but lately, a new urgency laced her every move. The quiet evenings spent drawing dragons in her sketchbook had been replaced by daily drills, learning how to disarm, how to escape a hold, how to strike a vulnerable point. "What if they have a knife?" Hannah had asked one evening, and Lena's face had tightened. "Then you run or you fight like your life depends on it. Because it will." Today, Lena was focusing on situational awareness. Always know your exits. Always know what's behind you, who's around you. She swept her gaze across the overgrown yard, then back to Hannah. "And never, ever let your guard down." Hannah executed another block, her movements becoming smoother. She understood the moves intellectually, but the intensity in Lena's eyes made her wonder about the real stakes. Was this just general preparedness, or was there something specific Lena feared? A chill, unrelated to the cooling air, trickled down Hannah's spine. Lena had lived a lifetime before Hannah, a life Hannah knew nothing about. Later, as twilight bled into the sky, Hannah was sketching a particularly fierce dragon in her room when she heard Lena's muffled voice from the living room. The door was ajar. Curiosity, a serpent coiling in her gut, tugged her closer. "I don't know how they found us." Lena's voice was low, strained. "I've been so careful." A pause, filled only with the rustle of leaves outside. "No, she doesn't suspect. Not really. But she's perceptive." Another long silence. Hannah edged closer, pressing her ear to the doorframe. "I told you I needed to protect her. She's the boss's daughter. For heaven's sake. What was I supposed to do?" The words hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. Hannah's pencil clattered to the floor, unheard. Lena, the boss's daughter? The pieces didn't fit, yet a cold certainty began to settle in Hannah's mind. The festival confrontation. The autumn air, thick with the aroma of roasted chestnuts and sweet rice cakes, swirled around Lena. She watched Hannah's face ignite, a brief beacon of unrestrained joy, as the child pointed at a stall shimmering with silk lanterns. For a moment, Hannah's usual shyness vanished amidst the joyous chaos of the Harvest Moon Festival. It had been years since Lena had indulged in such a public display of normalcy. Yet Hannah deserved this taste of uncomplicated happiness. The crowd, a vibrant tapestry woven from local townsfolk and curious tourists, offered a comforting cloak of anonymity. Clutching a small, intricately carved wooden dragon, Hannah skipped ahead, her laughter a melody Lena had fiercely fought to preserve. A sudden, internal chill, unrelated to the encroaching evening, prickled Lena's skin. Her gaze, a perpetual sentinel, swept through the throng. He was there, a stark silhouette against the setting sun, standing by the ancient willow, his cold, unwavering stare fixed solely on her. The enigmatic figure from her recurring nightmares, the one who had shadowed her existence for weeks, now stood unveiled. Lena's hand instinctively reached for Hannah's shoulder, drawing her gently closer. "Stay close, sweet pea," she murmured, her voice a surprising anchor against the sudden tremor in her gut. With unnerving grace, he navigated through the revelers, who seemed to part for him like phantoms. His face, a mask of grim determination, betrayed no flicker of emotion. "Lena, we need to talk." His voice, a low rumble cutting through the festive din, was meant for her ears alone. "I have nothing to say to you," Lena countered, her grip on Hannah tightening. Hannah, sensing the abrupt shift in Lena's demeanor, looked up, her bright eyes now clouded with apprehension. "Oh, but you do," he replied, a ghost of a smile, devoid of warmth, playing on his lips. "Or rather, you will listen. My employer, Mr. Lee, has been exceptionally patient. He wants his daughter back." Lena's breath hitched. Hannah isn't his daughter. The lie felt thin and brittle, even to her own ears. The man's eyes narrowed, piercing her facade. "Don't insult my intelligence. Or his. Mr. Lee commands considerable influence. You've been gone 17 years, Lena. He hasn't forgotten. He knows everything. He knows you took her, concealed her, raised her as your own." He gestured subtly towards Hannah, who was now clinging to Lena's leg, her gaze darting nervously between them. "Hannah belongs with her father, the head of the Songgangpa, the most powerful man in the Korean underworld." The world spun for a moment, the festival's vibrant lights blurring into an indistinct haze. A cold dread seeped into Lena's bones. The Songgangpa, Mr. Lee, Hannah's father. The truth, long buried and meticulously guarded, had found her. And it had chosen the most public, most vulnerable of places to reveal itself. The truth revealed. The rhythmic clink of Hannah's chopsticks against ceramic echoed through their small apartment, the loudest sound in the sudden stillness. Hannah's chopsticks clattered softly onto the table, her usual reserve now pierced by a fleeting apprehension. Lena drew a breath, the warm, garlicky scent of their dinner suddenly thick and suffocating. "You know I found you, right? 17 years ago." Hannah gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. "What I haven't told you is how." Lena paused, searching for words that wouldn't shatter the fragile world they'd so carefully constructed. "Your mother, she died when you were very young. An accident." Lena's gaze drifted to the mantelpiece, to the framed photograph. A younger, fiercely protective Lena cradling a tiny, swaddled Hannah. "And your father, Mr. Lee, he wasn't fit to raise you." Hannah stiffened, her jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "My father." The name was a ghost of a sound, edged with an unfamiliar dread. Lena nodded, her heart aching for the weight she was about to lay upon Hannah's young shoulders. "He's a powerful man, Hannah. A dangerous man. His world, it's no place for a child. Your mother's family understood that. and so did I. Lena's eyes hardened, a steely, protective glint emerging. I was working for him in the shadows. I saw the kind of life you were destined for. He saw you as an extension of his empire, not a daughter to be cherished. Hannah pushed her plate away, the half-eaten rice suddenly an unappetizing mound. He would have hurt me? Her voice was barely a tremor. Not physically, perhaps. Lena clarified, remembering the chilling, pervasive control Mr. Lee exerted over everyone in his orbit. But he would have warped you, molded you into something you were never meant to be. He would have extinguished your light, your spirit. Lena reached across the table, her hand closing over Hannah's. Hannah's fingers were cold, despite the room's warmth. I couldn't let that happen. Your mother, she would have wanted you safe, loved. So I took you. I ran. A tremor ran through Hannah's hand. Her eyes, wide and glistening, searched Lena's face. A complex tapestry of fear and dawning comprehension. The raw, brutal truth hung suspended between them, stripping away the comfort of their familiar routine. But beneath the fear, Lena perceived something else, a flicker of relief, a quiet acceptance of the guarded quiet of their years, of Lena's unyielding vigilance. The scattered pieces of a long-held mystery were finally aligning. The bond between them, forged in a daring escape and deepened by a lifetime of quiet love, now tightened, bound by shared knowledge and a formidable, unspoken adversary. Under siege. The familiar squeak of the porch swing, usually a comforting sound, vanished as a black sedan glided silently to a halt in front of the old Miller house. Lena, stirring a pot of simmering kimchi stew, felt the subtle shift in the air, a cold front moving in despite the warm afternoon. Hannah, hunched over a sketchbook at the kitchen table, her pencil scratching out an intricate dragon scale, paused, her small hand tensing. The front door, which Lena had carefully restored, shuddered under a series of insistent raps. Not a friendly knock but a demand. Lena wiped her hands on a dish towel, her movements slow and deliberate, belying the sudden clench in her gut. She glanced at Hannah, whose eyes, wide and dark, were already fixed on her. "Stay here, sweet pea," Lena murmured, her voice steady. She opened the door to a tableau she'd been dreading for 17 years. Mr. Lee stood on her porch, a dark suit an incongruous sight against the rustic backdrop of wildflowers and chipped paint. His face, etched with a lifetime of authority, was impassive, but his eyes, sharp as obsidian, swept past Lena to the interior of her home. Behind him, two hulking men in identical suits stood like sentinels, their presence a solid wall of menace. "Lena." Mr. Lee's voice was a low rumble, carrying the weight of old grievances. "You have made a grave mistake." "Mr. Lee," Lena replied, her chin lifting fractionally. "To what do I owe this unexpected visit?" The scent of pine and damp earth clung to his expensive cologne. "Do not play coy. You know precisely why I am here." His gaze sharpened, piercing. "You abducted my granddaughter, stole her from her rightful family." Lena's jaw tightened. "She is my daughter, and she is not abducted. She chose to be with me." A flicker of something dangerous, a barely suppressed rage, crossed Mr. Lee's face. "A child cannot make such a choice. You poisoned her mind. You filled her with lies." He took a step forward, his shadow falling over Lena. "You have had your time. Now Hannah comes home. To Korea. To her family." From behind Lena, a small voice cut through the tense air. "No." Hannah stood in the kitchen doorway, her sketchbook clutched to her chest like a shield. Her usually shy demeanor was replaced by a fierce defiance. Her eyes, so like her mother's, glared at Mr. Lee. "You're not my family." "Lena is." Mr. Lee's eyes narrowed, a cold smile touching his lips. "Ah, the prodigal granddaughter. You have grown, Hannah, but you are still a child. You belong with your blood, with your heritage." "My heritage is with Lena," Hannah insisted, her voice trembling slightly but holding firm. Lena placed a hand on Hannah's shoulder, a silent promise of protection. "She stays with me, Mr. Lee." This is her home. This is a temporary arrangement, Lena, Mr. Lee stated, his voice now laced with an icy finality. One way or another, Hannah will return to Korea. Tonight. Hannah's choice. The oppressive silence in Mr. Lee's lavish study was broken only by the hum of the air conditioning. Hannah, usually shrinking into herself, now stood straighter, a quiet defiance hardening her usually soft gaze. Lena's earlier whispered instructions echoed in her mind. Look him in the eye, don't flinch. You are strong, Hannah. She remembered the swift, graceful movements Lena had shown her, the way a small body could deflect a larger one. Not that she planned to fight, but the knowledge gave her an anchor. Hannah, you will come home with me. Mr. Lee's voice, usually a silken threat, was now laced with an undeniable command. He gestured to the imposing sedan waiting outside, its tinted windows reflecting the fading afternoon light. Hannah took a deep breath, the scent of aged leather and expensive wood filling her nostrils. Her fingers, usually itching for a pencil and sketch pad, clenched at her sides. No, she said, her voice surprisingly firm, though a tremor still ran through her. She met his gaze, holding it, just as Lena had taught her. I'm staying with Lena. Mr. Lee's jaw tightened. This woman is not your mother. She has no claim. His eyes flicked to Lena, who stood calmly beside Hannah, a small, unassuming briefcase clutched in one hand. She is my mother, Hannah countered, her voice gaining strength. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but beneath it, a fierce loyalty bloomed. She remembered Lena's gentle touch, her patient explanations of dragon lore, the unwavering belief in Hannah's art. That, Lena interjected, her voice even and clear, is where you are mistaken, Mr. Lee. She stepped forward, placing the briefcase on the polished mahogany desk. With a click, she opened it, revealing a stack of documents. These are copies of your financial records, Mr. Lee. The shell corporations, the laundered funds, the illicit dealings, all meticulously documented. She slid a thick file across the desk. And this, Mr. Lee, is a signed, notarized statement from your late wife, my sister, made just weeks before her passing. A statement detailing her fervent wish for Hannah to be raised by me, free from your influence. Mr. Lee's composure faltered, a flicker of raw fury replacing his aristocratic disdain. His eyes, usually calculating, now darted between the documents and Lena, then to Hannah, who stood unwavering. The air in the room thickened with unspoken threats, but Lena held his gaze, a quiet triumph in her steady eyes. Justice in Willow Creek. The oppressive silence of the farmhouse was shattered by the distant wail of a siren, a sound that grew steadily louder, cutting through the humid afternoon air. Lena felt Hannah's small hand instinctively tighten in hers, a silent question in the girl's wide, dark eyes. Mr. Lee, who had been pacing near the fireplace, paused, his head cocked, a flicker of annoyance crossing his otherwise impassive face. His men, positioned around the room, shifted uneasily. The siren culminated in a screech of tires on the gravel driveway. A heavy thud followed, then another, as car doors slammed shut. Footsteps crunched outside, purposeful and unhurried. Lena exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, a faint tremor running through her. Mrs. Gable had come through. A firm knock echoed through the house, making the old timbers groan. Mr. Lee's eyes narrowed, a cold glint appearing. One of his men moved towards the door, but Mr. Lee raised a hand, stopping him. I'll handle this, he said, his voice deceptively calm. He strode to the door, pulling it open to reveal Sheriff Brody, his uniform star gleaming under the porch light. Behind him stood Deputy Miller, his hand resting casually on his holstered weapon. Mr. Lee, I presume? Sheriff Brody's voice was deep, laced with the easy authority of a man who knew his town. Sheriff Brody. We received a rather urgent call from Mrs. Gable about an unscheduled gathering here. His gaze swept past Mr. Lee, settling briefly on Lena and Hannah, then on the other men in the room. Mr. Lee offered a thin, humorless smile. Just a family matter, Sheriff. A misunderstanding, nothing more. Is that right? Brody's eyes, the color of a stormy sky, fixed on Lena. Ma'am, are you Lena Williams? Lena stepped forward, pulling Hannah gently with her. Yes, Sheriff. And this is my daughter, Hannah. We're glad you're here. She reached into the inside pocket of her jacket, her fingers brushing against the crinkled edges of the documents. I believe these might explain things a little clearer than Mr. Lee would like. She handed Brody a thick envelope. He took it, his brow furrowing as he extracted a birth certificate, a faded adoption decree, and a notarized statement. His eyes scanned the papers, his lips moving silently as he absorbed the information. A muscle twitched in his jaw. He looked up, his gaze hardening as it landed on Mr. Lee. It seems, Mr. Lee, Brody said, his voice losing its amiable tone, that Ms. Williams has full legal custody of Hannah, established years ago, and these restraining orders, they're quite explicit. He folded the papers deliberately. Attempted abduction, illegal trespass, harassment. That's a long list for a family matter. Mr. Lee's composure finally cracked. This is an outrage. She's a thief. She stole my granddaughter. His voice rose, the thinly veiled anger now raw and exposed. Your granddaughter is here with her legal guardian, Mr. Lee, Brody countered, his voice steady, unflappable. And you are in violation of multiple laws. He nodded to Deputy Miller. Mr. Lee, you and your associates are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. The air crackled with tension. Mr. Lee's men tensed, but the sight of Deputy Miller's hand tightening on his weapon, and Sheriff Brody's unwavering gaze, held them in check. The illusion of Mr. Lee's power, so absolute moments before, evaporated in the face of small-town justice. He stood rigid, his chest heaving, his eyes burning with fury and humiliation. You haven't heard the last of this? Mr. Lee snarled, his voice a low growl, as Deputy Miller moved to cuff him. Lena simply watched, her grip on Hannah's hand firm, a quiet strength emanating from her. The immediate threat was neutralized. The cold steel of the handcuffs clicked, a sound that, to Lena, was the sweetest music she'd heard in 17 years. A new beginning. The scent of pine and fresh-baked bread, a comforting aroma Hannah now associated with safety, drifted through the open window. Lena sat beside her on the porch swing, the late afternoon sun painting streaks of gold across their faces. Hannah, engrossed in sketching a new dragon, its scales intricate and fierce, occasionally looked up, prompting Lena for another tale. Remember that time in Palermo? Lena's voice was softer here, less guarded than in their early days in Willow Creek. The market was a labyrinth. You pointed at those candied fruits, insisting we needed them, even though we had no money for luxuries. Hannah giggled, a sound Lena cherished. You distracted the vendor with a story about a missing pigeon, and then we ran. Lena smiled, a genuine, unburdened curve of her lips. We ran a lot, but we always found our way. That's the important part, Hannah. We always found our way back to each other. She didn't mention the close calls, the whispers of their pursuers, the nights spent sleeping in abandoned cars. Those details were for her alone to carry. Willow Creek had truly embraced them. Mrs. Henderson next door left casseroles on their porch. Mr. Davies from the hardware store waved every morning, and even the teenagers on skateboards offered polite nods. Hannah, initially withdrawn and quick to flinch, now walked with a quiet confidence. Her sketchbook clutched like a shield but less often needed. The local library had become her sanctuary, a place where she could lose herself in fantastical worlds without fear of being found. One evening, as Lena struggled to assemble a flat-pack bookshelf, Hannah watched, a small smirk playing on her lips. You need help? She declared, picking up a stray screw. It's backward. Lena sighed, rubbing her temples. This is supposed to be the easy part, according to the instructions. Hannah knelt, her small fingers surprisingly adept. Yadiok Geneseo? She mumbled, pointing at a crucial join. Lena paused, a wrench halfway to the floor. What was that? Hannah looked up, her expression a mix of shyness and determination. It means, how are you? In Korean. You're frustrated. Lena's heart swelled. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed hearing Hannah speak her native tongue, or how much she yearned to understand it. Teach me, she said, her voice a little rough. Teach me everything. Hannah's eyes lit up. Okay, so, annyeonghaseyo is hello, and 감사합니다 is thank you. She pointed to the bookshelf. This is cheekjang. As Lena fumbled with the pronunciation, Hannah's patience was boundless. They spent the next hour, not just assembling furniture, but building a new bridge between them. Each Korean word Lena learned felt like a thread, weaving them closer, strengthening a bond already forged in the crucible of fear and survival. The past was still a shadow, but in Willow Creek, under the gentle guidance of her daughter, Lena was learning to speak the language of a future she hadn't dared to imagine.